This train station might not seem scary at first, but trust me, it's the scariest one I've ever seen. Out of nowhere, a weird noise echoed from the train tunnel. The unsettling sound grew stronger, even messing with things around. Sebastian, a guy in the crowd, sensed something off. He contemplated leaving, but hesitated a bit too long. People near the tunnel are affected by the eerie sound. They are visibly transformed by it, their eyes changing colors. They started hurling themselves onto the train tracks. As the train approached, they moved toward it as if they were captivated by it. In the chaos, Sebastian nearly tumbled onto the tracks, but miraculously kept his balance, narrowly avoiding disaster. Shortly after, his wife called, urging him to come home immediately and to pick up their daughter, Anna, from school. As the situation around him escalated, Sebastian witnessed his co-workers beginning to take their own lives right before his eyes. Fear took over, and he fled the office. Outside, a man fell from above and landed on his car, destroying it on impact. The city had descended into chaos. People ran in panic. Vehicles sped out of control. Accidents occurred everywhere. Somehow, Sebastian managed to escape and rushed toward Anna's school. Upon arriving, he found the staff dead and the building in ruins. Fires burned through classrooms, and children were paralyzed with fear. Grabbing Anna, he shielded her as they made their way through the destruction. On the way, they passed a church where a priest stopped him. The man tells Sebastian that what is happening is a divine gift, a miracle. But Sebastian had no interest in miracles as he only wanted to keep his family safe. Without another word, he continued on. Outside, he finally spotted his wife. But just moments after they were reunited, a speeding car came out of nowhere and struck her, killing her instantly. 9 months later, Sebastian and his daughter Anna are spending time together in an abandoned skateboarding stadium. Their peace is abruptly shattered when they hear a noise and flee, only to be ambushed by a group of blind robbers who steal all their food. Though hurt, Sebastian tries to fight back, but Anna stops him. Later, he thanks her, realizing the attackers were just starving and desperate. On the radio, there is a warning stating that some strange aliens are outside, and everyone is advised not to look directly at them, as they can control minds and cause people to harm themselves. Sebastian, along with Anna, covers his eyes and goes outside. He approaches some strangers, who have also covered their eyes with cloth, and asks if they have any food, as he hasn't eaten in days. At first, they hesitate to help, but Sebastian tells them he is an engineer and knows the location of his company's generator, which can provide electricity and heat. Suddenly, the strange energy of the alien aura begins to approach them, and they decide to take Sebastian with them. They lead him to their secret facility, where many survivors are hiding. One of the men, Martial, notices Sebastian's injury and tells him to see Liliana, a doctor who is also in hiding. She treats Sebastian's wounds and asks what happened. He replies that he got into a fight with some thugs. Later, she gives him food, and all the survivors gather around a fireplace. A blind man begins to share his story, saying the aliens nearly caught him, but he blinded himself with a knife and barely escaped. He also shares that the aliens mark their victims with a strange eye symbol on the forehead. Later, when everyone is asleep in a bus, Sebastian suddenly starts the vehicle. Liliana asks him why he's turning it on, but Sebastian coldly says that everything is going to be okay and accelerates. The others wake up and try to stop him, but he grips the wheel firmly and drives faster, destroying the facility and everything in his path. Eventually, the bus crashes and flips over, injuring everyone. At that moment, the aliens arrive. Martial, heavily injured, stumbles out of the bus and accidentally looks at the aliens. He immediately kills himself with a piece of sharp shrapnel. Liliana also steps out, trembling but keeping her eyes shut. Sebastian calmly tells her not to worry and forcefully opens her eyes with his fingers. She catches a glimpse of the aliens and dies. Another man sees the aliens and throws his lit cigarette into the leaking petrol from the bus, setting off an explosion that engulfs everything in flames. Sebastian sees the golden light of souls leaving through the victims' bodies. It is then revealed that Anna is merely an illusion of Sebastian's mind. She praises him, calling him a savior, and tells him he did the right thing, as now everyone's souls will be in a better place. Sebastian walks through a dark corridor and comes across several people crucified on a wall, their hands bound. Most are already dead, but one man is barely clinging to life. With his last breath, the man whispers that the creatures tormenting them are monsters from another galaxy and that they will kill everyone. But Sebastian, unmoved, quietly insists they are angels. He gently closes the dying man's eyes and watches in his mind as his soul drifts upward into the sky. Moments later, Sebastian sets off in search of his next victims. He notices a woman entering a pharmacy, her eyes covered with cloth like many others who had learned not to look at the aliens. She hears the sound of his footsteps and stops, asking who he is. She introduces herself as Claire. Sebastian begins to repeat his usual lie, claiming he's starving and hasn't eaten in days, but knows the location of a functioning generator. Soon, two of Claire's companions, Rafa and Octavio, arrive with their two dogs. Suspicious, they argue against taking in another stranger, but Claire is intrigued by Sebastian's mention of the generator and insists he could be useful. Just then, the alien presence draws near, leaving them no time to argue. They're forced to take Sebastian with them and flee to their hideout, which is a secured nuclear bunker. Inside, Sebastian is introduced to the rest of the group. Among them is Sophia, a young German girl, and an older couple, Isabel and Roberto. Claire gives Sophia a piece of chocolate she had brought from outside, lighting up the little girl's face with joy. Rafa and Octavio pull Sebastian aside, pressing him for more information about the generator. In Sebastian's mind, Anna warns him not to reveal the truth and urges him to lie and get them outside as soon as possible. He follows her advice and admits he made up the story about the generator. Infuriated, Rafa and Octavio prepare to throw him out of the bunker. But just as they're about to remove him, Sophia intervenes, speaking in German. None of the others understand her, but Sebastian translates, claiming she said not to throw him out. This surprises the group as, until now, no one had understood Sophia or even known where she had come from. Grateful and curious, the group decides not to exile Sebastian and instead assigns him the task of finding out more about Sophia's origins. Sophia then begins to share her story, with Sebastian translating for the others. She explains that she was with her mother, going up a ramp, when they suddenly heard shouting. People began to panic, pushing and shoving. Fear took over. She saw many people taking their own lives by jumping into the river. Somehow, she and her mother managed to escape and hide inside a van. While in the van, they heard a radio broadcast mentioning a safe place in the mountains. Hearing this, the group asks Sophia where the place is. She doesn't know exactly, so she picks up a piece of chalk and starts drawing it. On the wall, she sketches a castle perched on top of a mountain. Claire suggests it might be Montjuic Castle. Sophia continues her story, saying that she and her mother blindfolded themselves and left the van, but during their escape, she fell and got separated from her mother. She never saw her again. Overcome with emotion, Sophia begins to cry, and Claire gently consoles her, explaining to the others that she found Sophia there and took her in. The group begins to debate whether they should head toward the castle. Sebastian argues that it's worth trying and that other survivors, and possibly Sophia's mother, might be there. He adds that they won't be able to survive much longer in the bunker. Roberto disagrees, warning that it would be a dying mission. However, as everyone casts their vote, the majority are in favor of going. Roberto, though hesitant, eventually agrees. That night, Sebastian once again sees the shadowy presence of Anna, who begins to influence him with her words. Under her sway, he quietly cuts part of the ropes tied to the dogs, intending for them to break free when chaos erupts the next day as the aliens arrive, creating a distraction. And just as he had planned, morning brings turmoil. The aliens arrive and the dogs' ropes snap, causing confusion. The moment the aliens appear, everyone starts reliving their most terrifying memories. Claire is haunted by the death of her brother. Sophia hears her mother's voice, gently urging her to take off her blindfold. Just as she starts to reach for it, Octavio steps in and stops her in time. Elsewhere, Rafa is frantically searching for his dogs. When he fails to find them, he becomes desperate, removes his blindfold, and looks directly at the aliens. Instantly overwhelmed, he smashes his head against a car windshield, killing himself. Claire, still trapped in memories of her brother, sits holding her head, paralyzed by the mental torture. Octavio tries to bring her back to her senses and looks for a safe zone to move everyone. Meanwhile, Roberto searches for Rafa, but is bitten hard by one of the dogs who is now under alien control. Blood gushes from his arm. Octavio calls out to the group, urging them to move toward the safe zone. He calls out loudly for Rafa, but can't find him. Claire painfully tells him that Rafa is dead. Hearing this, Octavio breaks down, devastated. Back inside, Isabel tends to Roberto's wound. As she bandages his arm, Roberto mutters that he heard she had cheated on him. Isabel assures him it's not true, and it's the aliens planting false memories to distort his mind and weaken him emotionally. Later, Octavio explains that he believes the aliens may have come from some kind of quantum realm. He theorizes that they change their physical form based on people's deepest fears and use those fears to control their victims. Claire opens up about her brother. He had suffered from clinical depression, and despite being a psychiatrist herself, she had been unable to help him. The guilt still lingers. She turns to Sebastian and asks what he had heard in his mind during the alien attack, but he cuts her off abruptly, asking instead where Sophia is. Claire starts to go after Sophia, but Sebastian gently tells her to rest and says he'll check on the girl. He finds Sophia sitting alone, quietly sobbing. He kneels beside her and offers her a locket, which is the one he had once given to Anna on her birthday. The scene then shifts to a memory from 7 months earlier, on Anna's birthday. Sebastian kisses her and promises that they'll celebrate soon. Back in the present, Anna's voice echoes in Sebastian's mind, questioning why he gave her pendant to Sophia. As he stands there, Claire walks in and, noticing something off, asks who Anna really is. Is she his wife or daughter, since Sophia's pendant had Anna's name engraved on it? She presses further, asking if it was Anna's voice he heard when the aliens arrived. Claire, revealing that she is a psychiatrist, gently offers to help him, assuring him she doesn't want anything in return. She tries to explain that what he's experiencing is a form of manipulation by the aliens and that he needs to confront it. She shares her own experience, that how she too had heard the voice of her deceased brother, but she realized it wasn't real. Behind Claire, Anna's illusion tries to sway Sebastian again, urging him not to believe Claire. Sebastian is visibly conflicted, nearly beginning to accept Claire's reasoning when suddenly, a loud scream from Roberto cuts through the moment. His infection has worsened, spreading rapidly. Claire quickly says they need antibiotics. She, Sebastian, and Octavio blindfold themselves and head out to search. Claire heads into a bathroom filled with medicine cabinets, while Sebastian and Octavio check another room. Octavio finds no medicine but discovers some food. He calls out to Sebastian, asking if everything's okay. Meanwhile, Anna is once again whispering in Sebastian's mind. Distracted, Sebastian replies that all the windows are closed and it's safe to return. However, when Octavio enters the room, he notices a window wide open. Removing his blindfold for a brief moment, he sees the aliens and immediately falls under their control. In a frenzy, he grabs a knife and repeatedly stabs himself in the abdomen until he dies. Sebastian watches in horror, shaken to his core. Unlike the others, he doesn't see Octavio's soul rise from his body. He feels deep regret, and Claire rushes in, drawn by the commotion, and quickly tells Sebastian they need to leave. Anna's voice continues to call to him, urging him to remove Claire's blindfold, but Claire pulls him away before he can act. Back, they rejoin Isabel and Roberto. Isabel asks where Octavio is, and Claire sobbily responds that he didn't make it. She hands the antibiotics to Isabel for Roberto's treatment. Isabel then asks why Sebastian is sitting apart from everyone. Claire explains that he's deeply shaken, and believes Octavio died because he might have left the window open. It's clear Sebastian is haunted by guilt. Later, Anna confronts Sebastian in his mind again, asking why he didn't remove Claire's blindfold. Sebastian replies that when Octavio died, he didn't see his soul ascend. Anna accuses him of losing faith. Sebastian, broken, confesses that maybe he's not a savior and maybe he's a wolf instead. As Claire, Sebastian, and the elderly couple venture outside again, they encounter people under alien control, known as seers. The leader of the seers is none other than the same priest Sebastian had met at the church 9 months ago. In the rush and confusion, the elderly couple, Roberto and Isabel, get separated from the rest of the group. The aliens surround them swiftly. They understand that this is the end. Roberto looks at Isabel, longing for one last moment with her. They remove their blindfolds, share a silent farewell, and are overtaken. Meanwhile, Claire discovers Sebastian's goggles through which he can see easily. The truth hits her immediately. Sebastian has been lying the entire time. He isn't just another survivor. He's with the aliens. She realizes he's likely responsible for Octavio and Rafa's deaths and possibly others. Taking Sophia by the hand, she moves away from him, determined to protect the girl. Sebastian, on the other hand, continues to hear Anna's voice inside his head. She manipulates him constantly, whispering that only 2 more need to die for their reunion to be complete. Claire leads Sophia to the ceiling of the bunker. She tells her to keep the blindfold on no matter what happens, but Sebastian follows them. Claire, trying to keep her distance, missteps due to her covered eyes, falls from the ceiling and tumbles down the stairs, becoming unconscious. Now Sophia stands alone in front of Sebastian. Anna's voice urges him to remove the girl's blindfold. He reaches out, nearly giving in, but emotion overwhelms him. He can't do it. He doesn't want to hurt Sophia. Instead, he embraces her. Something inside him shifts. For the first time in a long while, he begins to feel human again. A flashback unfolds. 7 months earlier, on Anna's birthday, Sebastian is celebrating with his daughter. The joy doesn't last. The priest invades their home. He takes Anna and Sebastian to the ceiling. There, he smears ink in the shape of an eye onto Anna's forehead and forces her to open her eyes. She falls under the influence of the aliens and throws herself off the edge. Sebastian is shattered. He looks at the priest in rage, but then makes eye contact with the aliens. That's all it takes. They take control of his mind. Anna's spectral form appears beside him, holding his hand, telling him they will be reunited. Back in the present, Sebastian returns to Claire and Sophia. He tries to explain, to express his remorse. Claire doesn't trust him and keeps her distance, but Sebastian insists he was deceived. He truly believed he was chosen, but now sees it was all a lie. He only wants to help them survive. Unlike the others, he can see the aliens clearly and remain alive. It's the only advantage he has left. On the other side, the seers begin to pursue the trio. Sebastian quickly leads Claire and Sophia away. One of the seers catches up and attacks him, pressing her fingers into his eyes to make him blind. With a sudden surge of strength, Sebastian shoves her away. She falls and dies. Without wasting time, Sebastian gets Claire and Sophia into a car and drives toward the mountain castle. Along the way, he keeps catching glimpses of Anna's shadow, who urges him to turn back, to give up, but he pushes forward. Eventually, he reaches the base of the cable lift tower, which the only route leading directly to the mountain where the army has established a safe zone inside the castle. He stops the car near the main entrance, blocking any easy path for the seers to follow. Helping Claire and Sophia out, he then sets fire to the vehicle by igniting its fuel tank. This cable lift is their final escape. As Claire and Sophia prepare to board, Sebastian tells them it's time to part ways. Claire urges him to come with them, but he insists on staying behind to delay the seers. Claire reluctantly says goodbye, and together with Sophia begins the ascent. During the climb, Sophia nearly slips through a gap between the stairs and starts to fall. Claire reacts instantly, grabbing her hand just in time. Realizing they won't make it otherwise, she removes her blindfold to help guide them to safety, knowing full well the risk. Meanwhile, the father arrives with his followers. Just as they reach the car, it explodes in a massive blast with flames and smoke erupting everywhere, cutting off their path. Enraged but undeterred, the father calls out to Sebastian, claiming he has been chosen for a greater purpose by the aliens. He urges Sebastian to surrender and join their divine mission, but Sebastian stands firm. He refuses. He tells them he is no slave to those creatures and never will be. Gripping a metal rod in his hand, he prepares for battle. With defiance in his eyes, he declares that he does not believe in their false god. Meanwhile, Claire reaches the top of the chairlift tower and attempts to start the lift, but she quickly realizes the power supply is out and the lift won't operate. A new idea strikes her, and she notices a large bell nearby. She begins ringing the bell loudly, hoping to attract the aliens. The sound catches the attention of the aliens, and they begin to approach. The energy from the aliens activates the chairlift, bringing it to life. At the same time, Sebastian's mind begins to be overtaken by the alien influence. It tries to convince him that the father is here to free them all, to lead them to freedom. As he watches the flames from the car, he sees the image of Anna standing in the fire, fully consumed by the flames. The vision almost breaks his resolve, but he fights to regain control. The aliens close in on Claire and Sophia, attempting to take over their minds. Claire starts hearing the voice of her deceased brother again. Meanwhile, Sebastian struggles with the haunting image of Anna engulfed in flames, but forces himself to focus. He tells himself that this cannot be Anna, as she's already gone. With renewed determination, he strikes the rod hard across the father's stomach. As Sophia nears the edge, on the verge of falling from the tower, Claire manages to catch her just in time. Claire then focuses on the chairlift, timing the opening and closing of its door. She realizes it takes exactly 4 seconds for it to cycle. With that knowledge, she plans to jump just before the lift doors close. Meanwhile, the father attacks Sebastian, inflicting severe wounds. Blood begins to pour from Sebastian's body, but he refuses to give in. The father mocks him, declaring that he will not survive. But Sebastian retorts that he may not make it, but Claire and Sophia will. He will sacrifice himself to ensure their survival, doing it all for his lost daughter. As Claire's mind is assaulted by the alien influence, she fights to maintain control. She counts the seconds in her head, and when the time is right, she jumps onto the chairlift, taking Sophia with her. They both make it to safety. Claire, filled with gratitude, silently thanks Sebastian in her heart. Meanwhile, Sebastian takes his final breaths, and as he fades, Anna appears to him in his final moments. She embraces him, comforting him as he slips away. Claire and Sophia finally reach the safety of the castle. There, soldiers begin to escort them for an inquiry. The facility is vast, with many survivors from the city working there. Sophia's mother spots her, and a highly emotional reunion unfolds between mother and daughter. Sophia's mother thanks Claire for bringing her daughter to safety. Afterward, soldiers take Claire for her inquiry. A medical officer examines Claire's eyes to check if she's been in contact with the aliens. Claire explains that she hasn't aligned herself with the aliens, but there was one individual from their side who helped her reach this place. She mentions that many others still need help. The medical officer then administers an injection to Claire, and Claire asks why it's necessary. The officer explains that it's a chemical marker designed to detect any epigenetic changes in her DNA. These changes occur due to stress and suffering, and they transform people into seers, individuals who can see the aliens without dying but remain under their control. Claire begins to understand that something similar must have happened to Sebastian. When his daughter died in front of him, his DNA likely altered, making him capable of seeing the aliens but not dying. This is why the aliens might have turned him into one of their seers. The officer then mentions that if Claire has indeed become a seer, her blood could be used to create a vaccine. Meanwhile, in a laboratory, 2 army scientists are using the blood of a captured seer to create a vaccine. They've been testing it on rats, and so far they've managed to keep the rats alive for 48 seconds after showing them an alien shadow. However, they've now developed a new seer compound they believe can extend the rat's survival to 1 minute. They apply the new compound to the rats and test it, but the experiment fails once again, and the rats die quickly. Meanwhile, the seer continues to cry out repeatedly, desperately wanting to see the aliens. And so the story ends.